Georgia Jean, and she is the host of the podcast Coming Out of the Cosmic Closet. I found her on Gaia. I'm a true follower of Gaia and now a true follower of Georgia Jean in the circle. It's very exciting. So thank you so much for being here.
Excited to be here, Kim.
Today we're launching our program, and it's featuring all of the phases of self-discovery with the spirit animal journey that I created from my pain to power process. And I will say that working with Georgia in about 11 months, the results have been, don't want to overstate it, but I will just to be authentic. They have been nothing short of incredible. My entire life has changed, and I'm really not going to cry in this session, but I can tell you that I just had these really hardcore themes in my life, you know, being adopted and being bullied and moving to the United States at a young age. And I just had so many layers, and these themes created these belief structures that were very destructive. And as a result, I had this blame, anger, shame process that was constantly running. And anybody that loved me, I would, you know, kind of pull them in and then really push away. But from my perspective at the time, it was not unusual. It was my reality. And through following Georgia Jean, I've been quite aggressive or inspired, I guess you could say, is a softer word. I've been inspired. I listened to all of her recordings that you can subscribe to from her site at circleevolution.com. But I listened to one every morning, every night. And when I started, I fell asleep. You know, I knew I had to get around my subconscious mind, and what it kept telling me was happening. But the result of it has been my husband, my daughter, and I have a very harmonious relationship. We are very loving to each other. We all respect each other's pain. There's just a whole nother way of living, and it's changed my work. It's changed my friendships in every quarter of my life. So that's why I'm excited to have Georgia here, and to present her as one of our first programs and walking us through the self-discovery journey. So Georgia, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you so much, Kim. That's so awesome to hear. I you know, because a lot of the times I'm just working with people over the phone, or they're doing my boot camps and stuff, and I, of course, I get messages all the time, people being like, oh, you know, things are going great, or I'm really feeling some shifts and stuff like that. But it's because I've been doing this work for so long, and for a long time without not many people knowing about it as well. And just building the library with over 500 recordings in it, and just being on this kind of pathway with it. There's nothing that makes, now I'm getting emotional, there's nothing that makes my journey feel more gratifying than when I hear specifically about what the work's done for people, because a lot of people are like, yeah, I feel great and stuff, but to hear, wow, I can now, when I hear like your relationships are better, I can, in my mind, I get the pictures of you know, your family all happy together.
I'm sorry, I have tears, but it's true. But it's true.
And people using the library too, because that has been building now for 13 years, and a lot of those recordings, when I was recording it, and there wasn't many people who had cottoned on to us yet. There's like one or two people listening to those recordings, but we just stuck with it, or I stuck, whatever, I had to keep going.
No choice.
And it's been building up and hearing people using that library, because I think it's the activation gateway, we call it now. It's just such a treasure trove of consciousness, and the journey of persistence for me, it's just very rewarding now to know that people are really using that resource, and that there's there's a time and a place for everything to kind of come into manifestation, and now's the time. So thank you so much for having me on here. And I wanted to, the way you embraced the process and the way you embrace this idea of taking the pain and turning it into power. Most healers, most people who have been on this pathway have embraced that, and you also have such a drive to help bring the tools out into the world so people can use them, because like all the time I was building the library and been developing these tools with the clients we were always working with, but there's no point having developed these powerful tools over all these years if nobody's using them. And I, as one person, can only do so much to get them out there and to convince people to try this stuff. Other people's words are always so much more powerful than me talking about my own work, I feel like. So when I made connection to the consciousness that I work with called the Circle of Light, and they were like, you're going to do this work and you're going to reach millions of people. And I was doing this work for a long time, and it was like 3 people. Like, what the heck's going on here? I'm doing this work to assist in the evolution of the planet, because that's what they're saying. You're going to reach millions of people, and you're going to help in this evolutionary shift in the planet. And this was in 2004, way before many people were conscious of this big shift that's going on right now. I kind of had to go with a bit of blind faith on it all, but now so many more people they're seeking tools. They're looking for things to help themselves, and we've just been waiting here with this arsenal of
arsenal for sure.
All the trigger fists out there going on. So I'm just really appreciate, because you came to me with your own entrepreneurial background, came with a very practical way to take this process further out into the world. And I just really commend you on having that, both the sort of the spiritual embrace on the personal level, the inner level, and then a foundational piece on a practical earth-based level to help me get this material out into the world. And so assist as I'm supposed to do in the evolutionary shift of the planet.
Well, I'm excited to be part of it, of the shift.
Journey, the transformational journey on the collective level. And we can, each of these spirit animals kind of, we can think about them personally, and then we can also look at the planet right now and be like, whoa, people are really going through it right now.
They are. And so, well, thank you so much, Georgia. I really appreciate that.
Excited to share.
So this is really the first introduction to the spirit animal journey, and it was something, I got stuck in the eagle, or in the healing phase, and I got stuck for quite a few years. And in meeting a lot of people, I feel they did too, because I was still really caught up in the story. So I was doing the work, and I was doing meditations, I was committing to the body work, I was doing all of that, but I wasn't getting outside the story. And so when I started to do that, and parallel to listening and then doing some work with you, and I watched the Gaia video, I don't know, 15 times, because the consciousness that was coming through with the circle was just, her explaining it. I just kept going. I'm like, I know what she's talking about. I just couldn't, get, my ego was like, nope, we're not talking about it. But so the spirit animal journey was created when I started separating myself from the story. And then I saw very clearly that I was stuck. I kept going back in for the pain. It was almost like I needed it. It was like it was a form of addiction, you could say, for sure.
Well, what I love about the work with the circle is we actually help people understand why they're compelled towards the pain in maybe a slightly less damning word, as
Addiction.
which
Yes.
has a lot of weight to it,
Mm-hmm.
but that the charge of unintegrated energy
Mm-hmm.
is potent, and we keep going back to it and back to it until we authentically integrate it, because
Right.
we're actually drawn to the energy. We're supposed to integrate it.
Right.
And so a lot of the times when we can't actually get that integration done, that's when people get obsessive and
Mm-hmm.
all this
Right.
kind of stuff,
Yeah.
because
Controlling.
they
Yes.
can't control, their mind is going nutty because they
Mm-hmm.
can't, the energy that actually wants to come home
Mm-hmm.
has a magnetic field to it, so we're drawn to it.
Mm-hmm.
But until you've gained those tools to genuinely integrate it, you can stay stuck there. And that's why we're excited to share the
Yes.
tools that will actually help that integration, which will pop you through to the next level. Because once energy is integrated, you don't have that obsessive quality with it anymore.
Right.
It's done, it's integrated. There's no
It's
point of attraction to draw you to it anymore,
which is an
because
interesting space
you're
to
in the
be in.
oneness within in it again.
Yeah. It's an interesting space to be in, because all of a sudden you're just like, it's kind of quiet up there.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's when we talk about moving beyond the paradigm of a
Yes.
story. So and I guess we can talk about this a little bit just generally so people
Sure.
understand it, and then as we get to each animal we'll kind of break down what this
Mm-hmm.
is. But if you think about how the mind usually operates with a story, whatever it is, whether it is a story that's still holding painful charge for you, or whether it's a story about not having something that you want and there's a charge of attraction towards something that you want, like you want to make a career change and you're not making it, or you're, or the other side is like you've got a trauma that's in some way controlling you in some way. When we operate from the mind, which is in the framework of polarity, like good, bad, right, wrong, us, me, them, all this sort of stuff, we're in relationship to the story within the framework of the mind. So the mind always wants us to take a side, like, well, they're the good guy and I'm the bad guy, or I'm the good guy and they're the bad guy. And we just keep rattling around in this thing. But once the energy of whatever that thing is actually integrated, we move beyond it. So the story and the sides and that whole thing is kind of done with in a lot of ways. Now we're just in a new reality.
Yes.
We've popped through to another level of our consciousness, and we have the opportunity to create a new reality. And that can be a life living beyond trauma, where it's no longer controlling you, running you, pushing you in some way, in some kind of behavioral way, in some kind of pattern, in some kind of program, or the next reality can be you in that new career path, you in that, no longer in the kind of like, should I or shouldn't I change my life? You're just doing it now. You're just in that new reality. So that's what this journey of transformation that you've really broken down here beautifully into these kind of archetypal animals that we can kind of ride with for a little while till we move beyond that storyline and into the new reality that we're seeking.
Well, that is a great point, because it is for everybody, that whether it's extreme trauma or whether it is somebody that's looking for the raise or the job, or, to be a better mom, or to have a more, more time to themselves, whatever the case may be.
Even to move house, it can be very like, oh my God, like I gotta let go of
overwhelming. But it's still resistance, it's still energy, it's still not integrated. There's still ideas that you have about it, and that, is keeping you and holding you away from that. So this really truly is for, for any degree. So any degree of a situation. But just to round out the development of this, it's when I started kind of disconnecting from the story. And then I was like, okay, I'm in the healing. And then I started working with an artist, and then, she does beautiful work in totem spirit animals on the most, on a very, true sense. And I just fell in love with her work, and we started having conversations, and I thought, well, created the snake of journey. And that was really, about shedding your skin. That was when I had decided, like, I had had enough, I just could not take one more day of this. And then, so that was the snake of journey. Then I rounded out to the eagle of healing, which, I'd been there for so long that I was like, I've got to get through this stage, but there was there was so much energy within that. And the eagle came to me as my spirit animal. And then I thought, within that stage, what would come after that, and then I was dealing with those emotions, the energy that I was perceiving as, negative emotions, of course. So I brought out the tiger of strength, and that was really the, facing it, because if you can face
Mm,
that, that you really need
mm,
that perspective. um,
yeah.
and then after that, it was kind of like, now I had to integrate my changes that I make in my everyday life. I had to watch what I was doing and where I was actually creating it, because to you in the circle's point, it's like taking full responsibility for your
The
creation.
entire creation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so when you stop denying the good and bad part of you, and then you
Mm,
start really authentically saying, like, I love myself enough to know that there's something I'm doing that I'm not seeing,
mm,
I'm kind of shut down here. So there was the butterfly transformation into the physicalizing of the changes. And then the sag of honor, which is one of my favorite, because it really is that space where, I mean, you just don't know. When you don't know, you don't know, and all the characters that played it for you and with you, and, all of the perspectives that you had on yourself and believed it was good and bad, and, all those things, they all had to be honored to kind of get to that phase of, to close it out to me.
mm,
Um, and then beyond that is the peacock of confidence. That is like,
mhm.
that's it. That's where it ends. You took yourself on, you made the changes, and now you get to go out and live your life until you get a new initiation, and blah blah blah. But that's basically how the spirit animal journey was developed.
And it's so funny because it just dawned on me as you were saying that, because I love animals. And years ago, I was in art school. It was like one of my early incarnations. And I actually painted animals. I don't know if I've shared
Oh
this with you. I
no.
painted animals, and I was using them as a metaphor for man's struggle with the animal struggle against man and the environment,
Mm,
was really a metaphor for our own struggle with our own mind.
mhm.
And it's very interesting because if you look back at some of those paintings, there's actually um, uh, symbols in those paintings that I did when I was like 19, 20, 21,
Oh wow.
that are in my work today as
Yeah,
tools. So anyway, but so the
that's
animal thing really,
incredible.
on
Hmm.
a personal level, I love animals and I do really connect with the animal motif
Hmm.
myself. So even though we talk about energy technically, that particular motif and the art, I love the artworks that you've made with these with the sense of self archetypes as well. They're really beautiful.
Yeah,
So
thank you.
so should we
Yes,
dive
so
into them?
we put together a little snack, a little boot camp for everyone, to take you through the phase. So whatever it is that your intention is, I can promise you that when you start this journey, you will not be the same person as when you end this journey. You will shift. And so Georgia and I have spent quite a bit of time going back and forth to find and go through some of her library, to figure out in each stage of the spirit animal journey, the sense of self spirit animal journey, that what would be the most appropriate in that phase to support the growth, and get you to that next level. And
Mm,
Georgia has brought in is going to be, telling you about some tools and some processes that you can use to help support you. But what's most important is that you have fun. And anytime that you see a change in your behavior, or even notice that you're even questioning something, is a huge win. It's such a huge win. And so it's so important that you are on your own side about that, and that you're
yeah.
celebrating those little wins.
Yeah, and honestly, it is huge, even you getting to this point, to watching this, because as we break, go into this, our minds want to keep things the same. And so often we have to get pushed into this kind of pathway of transformation, either through a crisis or a deep desire that is unmanifest. But I just want to commend everybody's courage to show up and to not let the mind um, keep you back from the transformational process, because it's the mind's job actually to keep everything the same, but you are not your mind. And mastery really comes from being able to step above that and go, okay, I feel my mind is distracting me. Maybe you bought the program and then you're not actually watching it or using the tools. And tools, literally, like, I can give you the greatest tools on the world. I can give you a hammer, I can give you a chainsaw, I can give you anything to break down the mind. But if you don't pick them up and use them, they're worthless. So I always invite, I know that people are busy, that their resources of time and money are valuable, but these tools are always designed to give you back more of those resources, because they're designed to actually short circuit the time and often money wasting mind to get you on track much faster with what you want. So I always like to give that caveat. I can only meet you halfway. I give as much content as I can. If you go to my website, there's tons of resources. But when you meet us halfway, now we have a partnership for transformation, not just for you personally, but as is my bigger mission, to help the whole world get through its snake of transformation right now.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I changed my relationship and some very big, serious, or some very consistent structures and themes that showed up in my life in a short period of time, in contrast to some of the other healing that I was doing. But what happened is what I was doing with the circle was amplifying my other healing modalities, my hypnosis, my massages, my Reiki, my meditations, everything. But I did show up. And that's something that I can say is that I did show up. I did it halfway. I every day ran the tools, and I listened to the recordings every night, every morning. Now, not everybody, it's probably not even recommended that you do it that way.
That's like doing it like a hardcore,
it's
like the riding the
that's the Olympic level, But I had other stuff I wanted to get to, and
I embrace that. I embrace the just going for it, because once you do the work, how far you get such a shift when you do it, that some of that discomfort with really embracing it that way is definitely worth the payoff. So, but everybody's different. Everybody has different things to manage. The main thing is keep returning, whether it takes you a week to power through this material, or whether it takes you 6 months or a year. Just make that commitment to come back and do it. Don't let your mind get in the way of a broader consciousness, soul consciousness choice that's actually brought you to this meeting place where we're all joining here together at this crucible.
Yeah, that's beautiful. One more thing to say to that. I actually made a negotiation with my ego, because I felt it was on lockdown, and it just wasn't showing me what I and I said, listen, I'm not going to do anything crazy, but we're doing this, so I'll like, it's no choice. So if I have to listen to it every night until and I stopped everything. I did it, but with that being said, I didn't like stop living my life, right? So I didn't put myself in this, like, okay, I'm in this healing space, and so and like eat well and did all the physical things, because I couldn't support really the changes that I was making in these other areas if I had made all these other physical type changes. That was kind of like an ego negotiation that I made with myself.
Well, interesting you also say that, because I've actually found that for me personally, there was a time when I was going through a huge crack in my consciousness, and I was really getting broken down. It was when I was going from singular identity into connection with the oneness in a very visceral way, and I was really getting broken down, and I had to just surrender to doing the processes, and I was processing all day. But it is so interesting that during that time, one of my major life themes, which was a lack of abundance, just resolved. And so it actually wasn't about me doing more linear work to build my business or do whatever needed to be done on a linear, obvious mind-based level. it was actually the energy moving began to shift my reality. And I really took note of that. And I was like, the processing is the power, and the quantum reality will follow. So don't be afraid if you're in this process that your linear world's going to collapse. In many ways, it actually starts to thrive when you stop trying to control it with the mind that doesn't work, honestly.
Yeah.
And the other thing about making that negotiation with the mind, and I love the way you said that. I know this is only supposed to be
I know, it's like an hour intro.
but I feel like we're it's just flowing in a way to help you understand the value of a crucible like this.
Yes.
And this is really your primer to go on this journey with us, is that the mind that wants to keep things the same is only doing that out of survival. It feels like what it knows is the best system. And I promise you, when you make that commitment, and you, as being the master of your mind, when you show the mind that this actually works better, it will embrace it. It will actually start working with you rather than against you on this process. And that's another really beautiful thing when
right.
when
No, it's
your
true.
mind, you kind of wake up and your mind's like, start doing your love and acceptance today.
Right.
Because it starts to see that it works better than the old system it has, and it will embrace the change. So you, on a lot of the times, you just have to use your will to get that momentum started, and then it'll really start to happen as well.
That's a great point.
I call it like a bouncer, and it's just doing its job. Like
right.
It's like it's a bouncer outside of a nightclub being
Yeah.
like, we're not letting this new stuff in. And
That's
then
right.
you have to have a bit of a talk with it and be like, dude, we can let some more stuff in. And then it gets the instructions, and it's like, okay, cool, right, now we're going to let this stuff in.
That's exactly right, though. But I mean, it's protecting deep pain.
Protecting.
And the pain, when you get to that level, I mean, if obviously the degrees change for everyone, but when you get to, for me, when I got to that level, then I understood and appreciated, and of course, Stag of honored it,
loved and accepted
it, and and saw the usefulness of it, because it was using the iceberg emotion of anger to just keep me away from really integrating that, the sorrow, or
and
whatever.
maybe something you didn't yet have the tools to integrate in a way that wouldn't be so disruptive.
Right.
And that's the other beauty of doing this process, that I'm giving you tools that will work, what I have found, really well at these levels. So if you've got the tools that work well at these levels, you can move through the phases much quickly, and you much faster. You won't get so much mind resistance, because it sort of works on a bigger, even just buying this program, something in your beingness will relax and be like, okay, we know that she's got the tools, so we can move her through this process now. And I see this all the time, that a lot of the times it's just about getting in the crucible, and the change starts to happen, because you don't want to open up certain phases without a good tool to help you through that phase. Because just as Kim, maybe in a way you felt you were stuck on one level, you didn't yet have the tool that was going to hold you through those next levels until something else shifted for you.
Yeah, well, that's a great point, because when I did the first phase, which was Snake of Journey, it's like, okay, I'm doing this, and then I went out and I did Reiki, and I listened to meditations, and I was like, I was just going after it. I felt so much worse.
That can be the process though,
yeah. But I didn't have the tools, so to integrate them. Whereas when I started interfacing and with the content of the circle, Georgia Jean, I was able to move through what I was working with, right? I wasn't afraid anymore, because I was like, I'm not doing that for at least 4 days. Like,
yeah. And that's the safety of having a crucible, even a container like this. Even though I'm not healing you, when you enter a program like this, it's definitely one of my intentions that I create my programs with a certain sense of crucible, that you're going to be held in a container on the way through those phases where it can be a little bit uncomfortable.
Yeah, and that's between
knowing
the tools,
that we've got the next tool that you need coming.
Right.
I feel confident that this is a container that can hold you through that.
Yeah. And with the tools and then the spirit animals as the archetype and the guides and the
You're
support. And
solid.
yeah, I'm telling you, I was like, that's so good. Well, let me see.
Yeah.
I'm not only the owner, I'm also a customer.
Yeah. And we're
But
all in it together.
that's right.
We're all part of the world. We're all working on our healing. I go through these phases.
Yes.
I use my tools every day, and it's really me in partnership with my guides. When I go through a next level transformation, I often have to find a tool that actually works for the human self.
Yeah, that's
So
100% right. So, all right, great. Well,
let's
let's
do
get
it.
started. Yay.
Okay.
All right.
Yay.
Awesome.